Adlet is a risless loser who lost his sister and best friend to a demon. He trains relentlessly for 10 years to be chosen as a brave. Eventually, his efforts paid off and he even got 2 pretty chicks with him now as he moves forward to take his revenge against the demon god. However, before any of this, the semi-final for the holy tournament for the Kingdom of Piena is underway and the 2 contestants are captains of the Royal Guards, Battle Rainhawk, and leader of the Red Bear Mercenaries, Quado Gain. The Prime Minister announces that the winner of this match will face the previous winner of the tournament, Princess Nashitania, in the finals. His words of wisdom are interrupted by a person who entered the arena after pushing the soldiers to the side. So much security for a holy tournament, yet no one noticed him until he entered the field. The trespasser introduces himself as Adlet Meyer, the world's strongest man. The whole arena goes silent for a moment after hearing him brag, and no one knows who Adlet is. He states that the 2 contestants will fight him now, but they don't seem bothered as they step aside for the guards to deal with him. Adlet performs every 14-year-old's favorite move, the spinning attack, and knocks all the guards down using poisonous darts. Quado and Battle step forward to deal with him and he dodges their attacks swiftly. He throws a clay pot filled with water at Battle and pulls out a belt full of smoke grenades, although not the modern version. The ancient smoke bombs block their vision and he drops spikes from his sword. He attacks Battle, but Battle knocks his sword away and Adlet uses the chance to grab him by the head. He pulls his face down and uses the petrol and flint in his mouth to create a mini explosion on his face. Battle becomes blind due to the smell of garlics that came with the fire and Adlet grabs his arm before bashing him into the ground. Adlet picks up his funky sword and apologizes to the paralyzed Quado for the poisonous spikes while showcasing the functionality of his sword. He throws his sword to the side since he forgot why he picked it up and proceeds to give a speech in front of the statue of the goddess of fate. He calls himself the world's strongest man and tells the statue to choose him as one of the brave. The guards don't let him finish his speech as he gets tackled and they all arrive to arrest him. He gets arrested after getting beaten up by the guards even though he calls himself the strongest in the world. The world's strongest man with a broken arm is visited by a young maid who calls herself his fan. She extends her hand through the bars and they shake hands. The maid teases him for getting bright red after holding a girl's hand and asks if she can talk with him for a bit. Adlet starts a self-introduction essay and reveals that he is 18 years old while his master's name is Atro Spiker. He left his home 10 years ago to study under his master and has lived in the mountains since then while practicing how to defeat the demon god every hour. He adds that his fighting is solely aimed at defeating the demon god and the girl makes fun of him for saying that he is the strongest again and again. She says that he has yet to defeat Nashitania, the Saint of Blades, but Adlet replies that he is still better than her. The girl questions how he is the strongest, but he gets on top of his bed to show that he is still a 14-year-old and declares it is what it is. The maid compliments his confidence and he asks her how the tournament went. She explains that the match was held again and Quado won in the end because Battle had injured his shoulder while fighting Adlet. However, Quado got destroyed by Nashitania in the finals. She questions him again about why he is the strongest and his cringe talk starts again. He adds that he wants to be one of the 6 brave as he has to defeat the demon god and asks if she knows about the Saint of the Single Flower and she says that everyone knows about her. She explains how a millennium ago, a demon appeared on the western side of the continent and it was called the Demon God. It began killing the humans and it split its body to create smaller demons called Fiend. The strongest empire at the time, the Rohane Empire, was easily destroyed and people accepted their fate. However, a saint appeared at that time, bearing a single flower, thus she was called the Saint of the Single Flower. She drove the demon god back to the western edge and after she returned, she announced that the demon god did not die. She revealed that the demon god would wake up from its slumber again to destroy the world. She prophesied that 6 heroes will appear bearing her power and they will drive the demon god back to slumber. The people trying to be heroes must display their might in the temples of the goddess of fate and a mark of 6 flower petals will appear on their body if they are chosen. The girl adds that these 6 heroes are called the Braves of the 6 Flowers and they were chosen for the first time 700 years ago. The first 6 Braves fought against the demon god and the demon king Zafir, who also appeared with him. They defeated the demon god and it went back to sleep, but it appeared again 300 years ago and the 6 Braves were chosen again. A few of them got killed this time, but they managed to drive back the demon god again. Adlet reveals that fiends started appearing again 10 years ago, and the maid tells him that a crack has appeared on the prophecy jewel, which means that the demon god will most likely appear within a year. Adlet does not miss the chance to flex and says that the time he defeats the demon god isn't far away. The maid asks him if he knows Madara Wichita, and he says that she is the best with the bow in the world. The maid continues to question him about other people, and Adlet asks her why she is asking. The maid reveals that they were all potential braves but were killed, and he assumes that it must be the work of fiend. She advises Adlet to stay until he heals since the prisons are heavily guarded. She laughs at him for thinking that she is a maid, and Adlet tells her to pass on a message to the princess that she is sure to be chosen as a brave and that he will be looking forward to fight together with her one day. The next day, the Prime Minister sentences the self-proclaimed world's strongest man to imprisonment for an undecided amount of time. He finds a dagger and guesses that it must be for his protection. He spends the next few months in his cell waiting to heal. His arm finally heals and he wonders if he should escape now. The sky turns red all of a sudden and a beating sound spreads throughout the whole continent. They realize that the sound is coming from the land of howling demons in the west and that the demon god has awoken. Adlet falls into an illusion and falls off his bed. His hand starts to hurt and the crest of the 6 flowers appears on it, which proves that he has been chosen as one of the braves. He grabs the bars out of excitement and screams to let him out. He hears someone coming and the maid appears again. She introduces herself as Nashatanya, the Saint of Blade and one of the 6 braves. She displays her crest, which is located in the perfect place, and Adlet displays his boring crest too. She uses Adlet's dagger to create even more blades and cuts the bars, dropping all the guards inside the cell. She tells him to follow her and they both run to the horses. They embark on their journey and Adlet informs her that the 6 braves must gather at the entrance of the land of howling demons and that's their destination. Adlet and Nashatanya ride away on horses. On the way, they pass through an orchard of fruits which gets Nashatanya very excited. She takes fruits from the locals and enjoys eating them. They stop to rest and Nashatanya shows Adlet some tricks of her Saint of Blades. Adlet is amazed to see her tricks and tells her that he also knew a saint, but that person was not happy with becoming a saint. He shows off that he is the strongest person in the world, so he does not ever want to become a saint, and Nashatanya throws some blades at him to test him. He dodges the blades using his main character luck, but then gets angry and yells at her to stop. She apologizes to him and acts like a daddy's sad little princess, telling Adlet that she is a bother to everyone since everybody yells at her. Adlet gets awkward, but she soon cheers up and teases him for falling for her prank. Adlet's peanut-sized ego gets hurt again and he takes off on his horse. Nashatanya follows him along. She defends herself that she is only acting silly in his company, but usually she is much calmer. Later at nighttime, they build a fire and settle in for the night. Nashatanya tells him about the civil war that occurred in Vienna 6 years ago, for which Nashatanya's father was blamed for. Due to this, he was stripped of his powers and he became the Prime Minister's puppet. She further tells Adlet that after the Civil War, her father had given orders to execute her, due to which she ran away and hid herself, so now she is used to sleeping on the ground. Guess she is not daddy's little princess after all. They both go to sleep a while later. When Adlet wakes up in the morning, he joins Nashatanya and they both watch the sunrise together. They discuss that although the demon god has already awakened, still the world seems very peaceful, and if they do not eliminate the demon god soon, the world will not remain peaceful for long. Soon they start to ride again. On the way, Nashatanya tells Adlet about Goldov, who is the leader of Vienna's Blackhorn Knights and who left on a journey 6 months ago to find the brave killer. She informs him that no contact has been made with Goldov for 6 weeks and that his last message stated that he had found no clues. Adlet suggests that Goldov might have gotten killed, but Nashatanya defends him that Goldov must be alive. She tells Adlet that Goldov also went to the finals in last year's tournament, but when she fought him, at the last moment he went easy on her, due to which she won the tournament. She explains that after her success she made a promise with Goldov that he cannot die till she takes her revenge. Big buff Goldov cannot even die in peace now. Adlet asks her whether she has news of any other victims, and she informs him that Rira the Saint has also been missing for a month. Adlet recognizes Rira since at this point he knows everyone and everybody. He comments that Rira is of very old age and therefore she cannot be a brave. Nashatanya confirms that she was also confused whether to report Rira as missing or not due to her age, which seems very biased coming from her. They both cross a bridge and get near the next country called Gwenbyre, the country of Iron Hills. As they move nearer the country, they come across herds of people migrating in the direction opposite to theirs. Adlet warns Nashatanya that the brave killers will attack them soon before they can meet up with another brave, and that the killers use this strategy to get rid of the last 6 as well. He explains that he has gotten all his knowledge from his master. Nashatanya starts to get nervous as if she is not the most powerful Saint of Blade. Using all of his master's wisdom, Adlet tries to cheer the woman up and she starts laughing. They see a family running and Nashatanya rushes to them for help. The woman tells her that they were trying to run away from fiends. Adlet and Nashatanya rush forward where they find the fiends attacking the villagers. For the 8,000th time, Adlet announces that the world's strongest man won't let fiends harm the villagers. He runs towards the fiends and throws small oil sacks on them. Instantly he uses a trick to light the fiends on fire. As the fiends start to burn, Nashatanya uses her powers to stab the fiends with her blades and they fall down. Adlet takes out a whistle and rushes towards the other fiends. He blows the whistle, which makes all the fiends stop and turn towards him. Meanwhile, the fight continues as Adlet attacks the fiends with his sword while the winner of the tournament, the most powerful Saint of Blade, keeps standing around uselessly. Two fiends spot Nashitanya and run toward her. Adlet attacks one fiend while Nashitanya uses her powers and stabs the other fiend, cutting his neck at the end. Both fiends fall to the ground and their fight gets finished. Nashitanya thanks Adlet for his support and tells him the most brutal lie that she will be more useful going forward. They both help the villagers pack up, and one villager informs Adlet that a traveler girl was living alone in the village and was left behind. Adlet, the greatest simp of the century, gets on his horse with lightning speed to rescue the girl, but Nashitanya stops him. She starts to whine that they both cannot save everybody and should move forward ahead. Adlet pretends to agree with her, and when she lets go of his horse, he rushes off to the village announcing that he is the world's strongest man. Nashitanya tries to go after him, but more fiends appear in front of her and she stops to fight them. Adlet searches for the girl on the village, but he comes across dead bodies of fiends instead. He spots a bullet with gunpowder inside the fiend's body and thinks that somebody has been shooting the fiend. He comes to realize that the girl purposely stayed behind to fight with fiends. Just then, he spots a white-haired, weird-looking girl with an eye patch. She notices him and inquires who he is. When Adlet tries to get close to her, she cocks gun at him and he stops. He informs her he is a brave just like her, and she introduces herself as Flamey. When he steps forward, she shoots at him. The bullet misses Adlet and she asks him whether he has come to kill her. Meanwhile, Nashitanya defeats all the fiends, and just then, somebody approaches her on the horse. Goldov gets off the horse and falls on one knee. He tells Nashitanya that he has come to protect her, and she reminds him that as fellow braves they should protect each other now. She asks him about the brave killer, and Goldov reveals that he has only found a clue so far, that the brave killer is a white-haired woman. Flamey calls Adlet a disgusting, useless piece of garbage for entering the city's ritual tournament and for using cowardly tactics. Adlet claims that he isn't cowardly since the strongest warrior in the world wouldn't use cowardly tactics to win. A defense that makes complete sense. She asks where the rest of his companions are, and Adlet tells her about Nashitanya. She introduces herself as the Saint of Gunpowder, Flamey Speedraw, and that she will deal with the demon god by her own. She tells Adlet to stay away from her, and Adlet tries to question her. Just then, she fires a shot which riles up Adlet's horse, and she takes the chance to slip away. At that instant, professional girl stalker loads the horse and sends it away before chasing after the girl. As he runs through the forest wondering where she went, he notices her trail and begins following it. Shortly, he hears a rustling of leaves and thinks he's caught her. However, she's too smart for a dumb hero like him, and he finds two rocks attached to a tree as a distraction. He climbs up the tree and tries looking for her through a scope. He notices her in the bushes, and she wonders how he is managing to find her so quickly. The game of cat and mouse continues, and she begins running even faster. Thinking she has escaped, Adlet suddenly appears and catches her by the river. She wonders if he is a wizard for catching her. Even so, she decides to aim her gun at him and tells him to get his ugly face out of her sight. He tells her that she needs him as she couldn't possibly kill the demon god on her own. However, she isn't interested in the grand team-up and claims that the other braves would surely kill her if she tried to meet up with them. Adlet thinks that her words make no sense. On the other hand, Flamey has no intention of explaining and leaves him after giving a final warning. Adlet doesn't pursue her but suddenly pulls out a grenade from his inventory and smokes her like a true gamer. Before she can come to her senses, Adlet sneaks up on her and steals her bag. He dares her to shoot him in the face or else he'll run away with her ammunition. He declares himself her new traveling companion and starts backing away. He says that he will save her if the other braves try to kill her. She tries aiming at him as he's leaving, but it turns out that she's soft-hearted as she decides to spare him. Afraid of losing her bullets, she begins to follow him, and Adlet is relieved to see that as he spies on her with his mirror. Meanwhile, Nashitanya and Goldov spot a fiend and Goldov attempts to attack it. He doesn't leave a scratch, but Nashitanya reads its moves and summons several spikes to in his path to terminate it. The fiend manages to slow down and leaps at her. She is saved by Goldov, who nails it to the ground. It looks like the fiend came with a friend to even the odds, and a new monster appears right behind Nashitanya. The new fiend is colossal size and she freezes up in shock, but Goldov again deals with it using a powerful strike. Just then, they spot Adlet's horse and Goldov discovers a letter on it. Nashitanya reads it and tells Goldov that it was from Adlet, who was telling her to continue towards the land of howling demons without him. At the same time, Adlet and Flamey walk through the forest, and Adlet is determined to remain by her side as the gentleman he is. However, she reveals that they will eventually kill each other and even asks him to go easy on her when the time comes. Adlet thinks she is joking, but Flamey says that it's her destiny to kill the demon god. They spot the land of howling demons in the distance. It's filled with the demon god's poison, which kills any human that touches it. The braves, on the other hand, are immune to it due to fate's blessing. They spot a fortress nearby and Adlet worries that the people are in danger, so they hurry towards it. Once they arrive at the fortress, he returns Flamey's bag to her so she can run whenever she wants. He shouts at the gates to open, and a group of guards appear demanding to know who he is. He introduces himself as one of the Braves, and a guard tells him that 2 other Braves had arrived a few days ago but had left for the temple. The gates are opened, and the commander Lauren welcomes them. He tells them that everyone had been slain by the fiends and that only a few survivors were left inside the fortress, giving him a promotion way faster than it usually takes. He tells them that it's their duty to protect what the king of the continent left for the Braves. He tells them that the fiends invade their continent in hopes of killing the Braves before they get the chance to fry the demon god. He tells them that their best bet was to seal up the fiends within the forest with a phantasmal barrier created by the former king using the help of 2 previous Braves. He tells them that the barrier could be activated from inside the temple. The temple was secured with defensive walls that were created by the previous Saint of Salt and could never be destroyed by the fiend. He tells them that Mora, one of the 6 Braves, already went ahead. He further explains that once all the Braves were gathered together, Mora will send a signal and they will head to the temple and activate the barrier, sealing up the fiends forever. Lauren reveals an altar which is a replica of the actual barrier inside the temple and says that they must thrust the sword inside the dais to activate the barrier. Hamlet decides to give it a try since he has nothing better to do and understands it fairly easily. After a few hours, they decide to leave the fortress and begin heading for the temple. Hamlet wonders if Nashatanya has reached the temple already and hopes they can get along with Flamey. Flamey is certain that they would try to eliminate her and tells Adlet to not be kind to her. Their emotional moment is disturbed by a flying spear and Adlet instantly pushes her aside, saving her from the spear. It turns out to be Nashatanya's spear and Flamey aims and fires back at her. Goldov tries to attack her by land, but Adlet tackles him before he can damage her. Adlet screams at them to stop attacking her, but they don't listen. Flamey is not surprised by this attack as she hides behind a boulder to reload for her next shot. Adlet lets go of Goldov and asks them why they are doing this. Goldov hits him away since he only answers his pretty princess. But Adlet throws sand in his eyes. He hits Flamey's gun with a rock and she misses Nashatanya. She reloads her gun and prepares to shoot as Nashatanya comes closer. Adlet finally loses it because no one seems to be listening to the self-proclaimed world's strongest man and shouts at them to stop. He tells them she is one of the 6 Braves, which shocks Nashatanya and she doesn't believe it. Adlet grabs Flamey's hand but doesn't blush this time and takes off her glove, revealing the crest underneath. He questions why they were attacking her and Nashatanya reveals that Flamey is the Brave killer. Flamey tells him that it is true and that she killed several potential Braves. She reveals that Nashatanya and Goldov were also potential targets, however she did not consider the self-proclaimed world's strongest. Adlet asks her if she killed Ryura, the Saint of the Sun, and she answers that she doesn't know anything about that. He asks her why she killed the potential Braves and she replies that she wanted to revive the demon god. This proves Nashatanya and her lackey's words and they prepare to attack her, but Adlet comes in between them again. He states that someone who is trying to revive the demon god would never be chosen as one of the 6 Braves and asks Flamey if she has any reason why she is trying to kill the demon god that she wanted to revive. She tells him that he is right and Nashatanya questions if he is really believing her words. His 14-year-old syndrome kicks in again and he says that he believes her because he can feel her desire to kill the demon god. He declares that they are all on the same side and if they continue this fight then he will side with Flamey. Nashatanya gives and says that she will do what Adlet says but says that she still doesn't trust Flamey. They discuss their next course of action and decide to head towards the meetup point where Mora, the Saint of Mountains, is waiting for them. Nashatanya teases Adlet that he got so close to a pretty girl like Flamey in half a day and that men like girls like her. Goldov asks him how he won over the princess so easily and Adlet tells him not to worry because he won't steal his princess from him. While walking through the forest, they notice some birds in the distance. Adlet uses his scope to watch them and realizes that they are flying fiends that are dropping bombs. He recalls that the barrier temple is on that side and they rush towards it. A group of fiends block their way and they kill them swiftly, but more keep on appearing. Nashatanya finally says something useful and tells Adlet to go to the temple first while they handle these fiends. Adlet rushes to the temple in the delusion that the strongest man got the most important job. He rushes to the temple and sees the flying fiend leave. He arrives and notices that the temple is unscathed even after such heavy bombardment. He notices an injured nun and goes to help her, but she tells him to hurry to the temple. He puts her down and goes to the temple door but sees that it is locked. He asks the nun if she has the key, but she says no, so he decides to go in with a bang. The bomb explodes and the door opens on its own. 2 armors come out of the temple and Adlet cuts them down. He looks back at the nun all confused and she turns into a monkey-type fiend. He realizes that he just got duped by a monkey and rushes after it, but the monkey runs into the forest. The surroundings suddenly fog up and he realizes that the barrier has been activated. He runs inside the temple and walks up the altar. He sees that someone has already placed the sword inside the dais and activated the barrier. He looks around to see who it was but finds no one. The rest of the group enters from behind and asks him why he activated the barrier. He explains that it was not him and someone else vanished after activating it. They understand that they can't leave until the barrier deactivates, and Nashitanya rushes up the altar to see it for herself. She says that someone activated the barrier because it seems like she was deaf when Adlet said it. Goldov takes out the sword to deactivate the barrier, but it doesn't work, so Adlet takes the sword from him. He uses the method the Saint of Salt used once, but it also doesn't work. Nashitanya grabs the sword and starts going crazy like that will help, so Flamey steps in to calm her down. A little child enters the temple and introduces herself as Chamat, the Saint of Swamp and one of the 6 Braves. Adlet introduces himself with the usual dialogue, and Chamat says that she is the strongest one. He explains that Chamat might be strong, but he is stronger, and Chamat mocks him by calling him an idiot. Chamat says that they should kill Flamey first, and they stop them from fighting. A woman enters the temple and introduces herself as Mora, the Saint of Mountains, also the leader of the All Heavens Temples and one of the 6 Braves. She scolds Chamat and tells him not to create a fuss. Another goofy-looking guy enters and Mora introduces him as Hans Humpty, one of the 6 Braves. They realize that there are 7 of them now while only 6 can exist. Adlet asks everyone to display their crests, so they do so one by one. Mora explains that there can only be 6 of them, and they deduce that one of them is a fake and most likely their enemy. Adlet and Hans run through the forest and they cut the trees along their path to mark their way. Adlet asks Hans who he is since he has never heard of him, and Hans tells him that it would be bad if he knew him. They come across the trees with cut marks on them and realize they are somehow running in circles. They try to use other methods to get out of the forest, but nothing works for them, so they realize they are stuck in the temple. They both head inside the temple, and Adlet informs Nashitanya that they have to shut down the barrier to make their way out. Mora tells all of them that the barrier can only be deactivated by the person who activated it, and if that person dies, then the barrier will get disabled as well. She also explains that only a human can activate the barrier and no fiend can enter the temple. Small Chamat, with her small thinking, insists that Flamey is the enemy and that they should kill her. Adlet, the world's biggest simp, defends Flamey once again that she is not the enemy, rather she is one of the 6. Mora suggests that everybody should firstly introduce themselves and tell everyone what they were doing before coming to the temple. No surprise to anyone, Adlet climbs to the center and announces himself as the world's strongest person. He rants uselessly about his childhood and tale for 2 long boring minutes. With next in competition to be the biggest attention seeker, Nashitanya steps forward. Hans makes a comment, and Goldov reminds him that he is talking to Piena's princess and he should know his place. Nashitanya narrates her story to everybody, and then Goldov's turn comes next. After Goldov introduces himself, Mora takes the lead. She tells everybody she is the Saint of Mountains and leader of All Heavens Temple, which keeps an eye on all saints and makes sure they do not misuse their powers. She tells them she replaced the previous leader, Riora, and when she became a brave, she came to the temple. She adds that she hid and waited outside the temple for the others, and Hans and Chamat joined her there. Chamat the frog takes the stage next and tells everybody that she is the Saint of Swamps. She then goes on to bore everybody with facts about her skills and journey. Hans's turn comes next, and he explains that he is an assassin, so when he became a brave, he went to his country's king and asked him for money for killing the demon god. He adds that once he got some money, he hid it like a true gold digger and then came to the temple where he met Mora. He also tells the others that he would not kill anyone, even a demon god, without money. Truly spoken like a man of principle. Flame's turn comes at the end, and she asks Mora to take off her eye patch. Mora takes off the patch and reveals a scar on Flamey's forehead. Flamey opens her other eye, which is also red just like a fiend's eye. She declares to the others that she is a child of a fiend and a human. She explains that 20 years ago the fiends wanted to create a pawn, so they ambushed a village. A female fiend, which was Flamey's mother, met up with a human, and when her mother became pregnant, her father was killed, leaving Flamey in fiend's hands. She elaborates that her mother and her allies kidnapped many humans and took them to the land of howling demons, where the humans were forced to build a shrine for the god of gunpowder, due to which she also got her powers as Saint of Gunpowder. She adds that as per her mother's wishes, she became very strong, and for the most part of her life she always considered the demon god as her savior, just like the other fiend. She doesn't reveal why she has decided to kill him now rather than serve him. Adlet argues that only a human can activate the barrier, and since Flamey is a half-fiend, she did not activate the barrier. Hans counters him by saying that the barrier also keeps the fiends out of the temple, and since Flamey managed to come inside the temple, then it means she can do extraordinary things which are not possible for fiend. They all start to argue again about who is the 7th fake brave, and Chamot proposes like a privileged brat that they should torture Flamey to reveal the truth. Hans then declares that he doesn't think Flamey is the 7th brave. He explains his reason that if Flamey was the enemy, she would have killed Adlet long ago to eliminate the 7th player. He adds that since Flamey did not even attack Adlet at any point during their journey, then she must not be the enemy. They all start to believe that Flamey may not be the fake 7th player. Mora asks Adlet to explain how the barrier was activated, and he narrates his whole story. Chamot pipes in that she killed the monkey fiend that Adlet came across outside the temple, and Mora explains that Adlet was attacked when he blew open the gate because he did not use a key to open the temple gate. Hans asks Adlet whether he would like to change his story and whether he is sure he has revealed everything. Adlet gets confused by his question but says that he has told everything. Hans tells everybody that since his specialty is sneaking in and out, he knows about Saint of Seals in detail, as the seals put in by such a saint locks people in or out. He then explains that the temple's door is a special kind of sealed door as well, which can only open once and won't close once it has been opened. He then questions Adlet that if the door can be opened once, how the enemy came in before Adlet and activated the barrier. Everybody starts to turn their suspicions towards Adlet, and Hans strikes the nail by stating that the temple has no other entrance, and the only entrance was destroyed by Adlet himself, so Adlet must be the 7th brave who activated the barrier to trap everybody in. Adlet thinks hard about how the person sneaked in, and Hans continues to pressure him. Han emphasizes that no one except Adlet could have entered the temple during that time, and Adlet assumes that the person must have dug a hole under the temple. He says that the person might have escaped when he opened the door, but Mora turns into Mythbusters and debunks his theory. She explains that the seal on the building makes it so that if a person breaks in through the walls or floor, the seal breaks and cannot be restored. She also adds that the armors only attacked the first intruder, and according to Adlet, they attacked him, which means that no one else entered before him. Adlet turns into Einstein and theorizes that it might be Saint that has the power to enter and exit without being noticed, but Mora shuts him down again, saying that no such saint exists. He says that it might be a half-human saint like Flamey that they don't know about, but Flamey says that she is the only half-human ever born. Hans and Chamot get ready to attack Adlet, but Mora tells them to stop. Nashatanya starts whining that it can't be him, and Flamey is confused how the tables have turned so quickly. Nashatanya is shocked that Flamey has no desire to help Adlet, but Adlet is trying his best to save himself and comes up with another theory. He theorizes that the person must have replaced the door after entering and hid until Adlet opened the door so he could escape without getting caught. Goldoff says that the Saint of Seals would be needed to execute that plan too, and Adlet believes that might be the case. Han laughs at him and says that this building was built by the previous saint and the current one can't create a seal like this yet. Adlet says that it must be the previous one, but he gets caught lacking when Hans reveals that the previous one died 4 years ago. He panics and calls Hans the imposter because he is lying, but Mora says that everything Hans said is true. Adlet says that this is all a trap and someone is trying to set him up. Mora asks everyone about their opinion, and Hans suggests that they should kill Adlet, but Nashatanya is against it. Mora asks the rest, and they are all ready to fight Nashatanya. When she asks Goldoff about his opinion, he attacks Adlet to show what he is thinking. Adlet dodges his attack by jumping to the side and notices Hans also running to attack him. He uses a flash grenade to blind everyone and knocks out Flamey during the confusion. He threatens to kill Flamey if they don't move out of the way, and Hans does so. He uses another flash grenade before leaving, but Hans throws a knife through it which stabs him. The others try to rush after him but are blocked by his poisonous spikes. He runs into the forest but falls down after running for a while due to blood loss. Nighttime falls and Mora tells Hans that they should retreat for now. Hans complains that Adlet might kill Flamey during this time, so she asks him to show her his crest. She looks at his crests and says that all the petals are still there, which means she is alive. They return to the temple and meet up with everyone, and the other group reveals that they also couldn't find him either. Mora says that they will continue the search in the morning, and Nashatanya is having a hard time dealing with Adlet's betrayal. Adlet dreams about the time he used to practice swordsmanship with his friend and eat mushrooms with her big sister. After something happened to him, he went to his master and begged him to train him so he can be the world's strongest. The first lesson he got from his master was to smile no matter what kind of hardship you go through. He wakes up and sees that Flamey bandaged him by tearing her own clothes. She calls him lucky that that bandage did not hit any vital parts. He asks her why she helped him, and she answers that she is 99% sure that Adlet is the imposter. She says that she is only waiting for the last 1%. He gets up and notices that Flamey is cold and that Flamey needs some flame. He tries to light up some fire to warm her up but fails miserably. She comes over and adds the gunpowder, which makes it catch fire quickly. He realizes that it was hot in the morning, but Flamey tells him that it was due to the temple and the salt barrier that keeps fiends out. She reveals that her fiend side was hurting very badly when she entered the temple. He tries to make her believe that he isn't the imposter, and he goes over everything again to see if he missed anything. He is still confused how anyone entered before him and questions if there are other ways to open the doors. Flamey says that she didn't understand what Hans said, and he says that Hans and Mora might be in it together. He theorizes that there might be 2 imposters. One is among them and the other is the one who activated the barrier. He says that he will focus on finding the 8 brave first. He lies down to get some rest and asks Flamey if she could help him, but she instantly rejects him. She calls him weird for still smiling, and he tells her that he is smiling because he is the world's strongest man and he never loses hope. He proclaims that he will find the truth tomorrow, and for the first time Flamey asks him why he wants to be one of the braves. This shocks him because he has never seen her being interested in someone else. Flamey calls Adlet strange, as if that's a surprise to anyone. Adlet tells her that he smiles during tough situations because he is the strongest man in the world. She then asks him why he wanted to become a brave, and this surprises Adlet since Flamey has never taken any interest in him nor asked a question, and no one can even blame Flamey in this situation. She explains that Adlet is an average man who uses weapons, so it's also strange how a person like him became so powerful. Adlet tells her that he became strong due to his master, who was a strong person who wanted to beat all the fiends, so he had holed himself in the mountains where he built many strange weapons. He adds that he learned fighting, arts, poison making, and even science from his master, and that his master had very harsh training methods which the other students could not tolerate, but he endured everything for the sake of his training. When Flamey hears the name of his master, she tells him that Alto was also on her hit list due to his strength. She comments that something must have happened if Adlet trained so hard and never gave up. Adlet starts to tell her his long-awaited childhood story. He narrates that when he was a child, a fiend came to his village and convinced the village elder to side with the demon god. He put a condition that any villager who wouldn't follow the demon god with his heart would be torn out and it would be presented to the demon god. Flamey recognizes the fiend and tells Adlet that the fiend is one of the 3 rulers who also came up with the idea to create a half-fiend and half-human child. Adlet tells her that his friend died to protect him from fiends and that his sister also died to help him escape. He then bestows words of wisdom on her that he never let revenge overtake his heart and that he only became strong because he had something to believe in. Flamey tells him that she is jealous of him since she didn't have anything to believe in, as the fiend who raised her and gave birth to her also abandoned her. Master of mommy issues Aka Flamey reveals that she went after Chamat, but she couldn't even scratch her, and when she returned home her mother tried to kill her. Flamey succeeded in running away, but she vowed to herself that she won't take revenge by killing her mother, rather she will kill the demon god which her mother spent all her life for. She turns her attention to Adlet and asks her why he believes her story and why he does not suspect that she is the 7th brave. Using the last 2 of his brain cells, Adlet comments that Flamey is just like him since they went through similar things in the past, and because of this fact he believes in her. She gives him a cold shoulder, just what he deserves, and starts to head back to the temple. Before going, she gives him a gunpowder accessory that he can use whenever he wants to call her. He shouts after her that he will protect Flamey and everybody else no matter what happens. Flamey tells Mora on her return that Adlet managed to escape since she did not have her gun with her. Mora believes her lie and Flamey then heads inside the temple to go to sleep. In the morning, Flamey tells the story about her mother to the other braves who show sympathy to her. Chamat comments that Flamey may be lying and Mora scolds her that Flamey is not the fake 7. Devil's Spawn Hand suggests that Flamey may be the 7th brave after all, since she could be lying about letting go of Adlet the last night. Flamey defends herself and Hans teases her that Flamey may be in love with Adlet already. Mora asks Flamey that how did she feel when she found out that Adlet was the 7th brave, and Flamey tells her that she wasn't surprised since he was trying to lure her to his side from the start. With thousands of Adlet's simping hours gone to waste, the group begins to strategize how to capture Adlet. They all split into pairs and Nashatanya and Goldov head to the forest to search for Adlet first. Hans teases Flamey once again that she probably cannot fight fiends. He asks her if she would be able to kill her mother if her mother begs Flamey for forgiveness. Flamey tells him that she would kill her mother without any hesitation, and Hans starts to preach to her about his assassin story. He explains that many people hire him to kill their loved ones, but they either always back away at the last moment or they always regret their actions later. Flamey ignores Hans, which he probably deserves at this point, and Mora and her both head to the forest to look for Adlet, leaving Hans and Chamat behind to stay in the temple. In the forest, Nashatanya asks Goldov whether he trusts her, as if the answer isn't obvious in this case. He tells her that he believes in her completely. She again asks whether he can believe her without commenting a word. Goldov asks her for an explanation, and she replies that she knows Adlet is not the 7th brave and that she is going to work to prove that he is not the fake brave. She also adds that she is certain that Adlet is waiting for her and that he has fallen into a trap. Goldov uses all of his manly powers and says no for the first time. Nashatanya argues with him that she has a hint that could save Adlet and reveal who is everybody's enemy. Goldov asks who she suspects, and she reveals that she suspects Hans is the 7th brave. In the forest, Chamat plays with her swamp, and as the others look for Adlet, who is hiding between the branches of the tree, he notices the 6 braves searching for him and jumps from one tree to the other to avoid being detected. Adlet notices that the group has been split into pairs. He starts to panic since this means that the 7th brave would also be paired up with a real brave, and he would try to kill him and blame it on Adlet. He rushes to the temple to get some kind of clue and runs into Hans there. Hans attacks him and Adlet steps back and throws a smoke grenade at him. Hans dodges the grenade and taking out 2 of his blades, he begins to attack Adlet. Adlet dodges his attack, but Hans keeps coming at him. Hans finds an opening and lands a lick on Adlet's chest, which sends him back flying. He jumps on him and raises his blade to kill Adlet. Hans demands Adlet to confess that he was the fake brave before his upcoming doom, but Adlet explodes a smoke bomb in his face and barely escapes. He runs away using the distraction, but he fails to see the 10-feet pillar in front of him and collides with it. He falls to the ground and Hans charges at him, but he narrowly dodges his blade and runs deep into the forest. Hans stumbles on a branch and Hans comes flying in to end him. He dodges again and evades his blade before running off once more. Hans doesn't let him escape his sight and attacks in an instant. He again manages to block Hans's attacks, but the assassin hero is relentless and jumps on top of him to slay him. Adlet puts all his points into defense and again blocks his dagger. He uses another smoke bomb to cause a distraction and starts running off. Before he can see it coming, Adlet is stopped with a kick in the stomach. Adlet realizes that he cannot escape the speedy assassin, so he chooses the other option to tackle the beast head-on. He lays down his tools and prepares to fight him with only a sword. However, Hans is logical unlike the rest, and thinks he has something up his sleeve, but Adlet hopes to prove his innocence. As Hans wonders what he intends to do, Adlet launches his blade out of the sheath at him, smacking his dagger away. He deliberately missed Hans's vital parts and hopes that Hans will realize he did so on purpose. Hans asks why he didn't take the chance. Adlet tells him that he spared his life to prove that he isn't the mole. He tells him that he is his comrade and reveals his crest as a symbol of his honesty. Hans realizes he might truly be innocent and says that he will spare his life. Adlet breathes a sigh of relief, but the tale has a twist. Hans reveals that he is the actual mole. Adlet tries grabbing a weapon as soon as he hears this, afraid he is about to die. He is too late and Hans slashes his neck open and kills him. However, since MC doesn't die that easily, Adlet comes to his senses. It was a hallucination, and Hans tells him that he had discovered the truth from his face in his final moment. Hans saw fear on his face at discovering the true mole, which meant he wasn't the actual mole. Otherwise, he would have been confused. His expressions told the actual truth. Hans determines that he is innocent, but had hoped for a reaction that would reveal he was the mole. After a few minutes, they decide to shake hands and agree to become comrades. On the other hand, Mora and Flamey arrive at Adlet's shelter and find it empty. Mora wonders where he could be hiding, so Flamey acts all ignorant and suggests that he is probably hiding on a tree like a monkey. She suggests that they should keep searching for him in the rest of the forest. Mora thinks she has no true intentions of finding him and tells her that Adlet is their enemy, and she should kill him as soon as they find him. Meanwhile, Nashitania and Goldov arrive at the rendezvous point where the Braves were supposed to meet, which is right before the land of howling demons. She says that Hans is probably the enemy, as she thinks he is too useless to be anything other than the villain of this anime. Goldov is the opposite and thinks Adlet is surely their enemy. Nashitania claims that she has been aware of his feelings for a long time, but this isn't the time to be acting jealous and tells him to get his act together. At the temple, Hans starts inspecting the walls and thinks it is impossible for someone to enter from the roof. However, he thinks that someone else must have surely entered before Adlet and activated the barrier. Adlet tells him that it is probably one of the others as he prepares to leave. While Adlet sprays the seal with something, Hans wonders how the barrier was activated in the first place, since he never actually learned how. At that moment, Adlet has light bulbs go up in his head and realizes that only those who were shown the activation sequence would be able to activate the barrier. He concludes that Hans and Chamat must surely be innocent due to that. He runs out of the temple hoping to find Chamat, and she appears before him. She wonders why Hans failed to kill him, and Hans tries explaining that Adlet is not their real enemy. On the other side, Goldov asks Nashitania why she thinks Hans is the culprit, and she replies she can't stop thinking about something. Adlet thinks that he has an even better way to persuade Chamat and tells her that they are close to discovering the real mole. But Chamat couldn't care less what he thinks and says that she's going to find the mole in her own style and kill every single one of them one by one until she discovers the enemy. The arrogant frog is certain that she can defeat the demon god on her own without the help of the rest and says that Adlet deserves to be executed first. She eats her flower and begins vomiting a swamp of slime. The men are left in shock seeing the swamp before their eyes, and monsters begin to emerge from the slimy liquid. Chamat reveals her powers, that she has a swamp inside her stomach that brings to life every food she's ever eaten. At her command, the monsters rush towards the men and they select the run option. They are caught in their tracks because the monsters are coming from the forest side as well. Adlet throws an explosive and they start running to go inside the salt pillars. The monsters follow them inside and they realize that the temple must have recognized them as saints since they came out of a saint's stomach. Tired of running, Hans slices away one monster but it begins to regenerate instantly. Adlet throws another explosive at the monsters closing in and asks Chamat why the heck is trying to kill even Hans. Chamat tells him that every single one of them could be the mole and thinks that they are all better off dead. Chamat offers Hans to kill Adlet and if the barrier turns off, she won't have to kill him. Realizing that this deranged kid has no intentions of stopping, Adlet and Hans unsheath their swords to battle her. Chamat again begins vomiting and more slimy monsters appear out of the puddle. Hans and Adlet are surrounded by the slime monsters from all angles and the monsters close in on them. The fiends get near Adlet and Hans and they both slash through them. The fiends get revived instantly and Adlet declares that they both must go after Chamat herself to defeat all the fiends from her swamp. He throws a blade at her but a fiend comes in the way and defends Chamat. They both try to get near her but the fiends don't let them get close. Adlet asks Hans to cover him while Einstein tries to think of some clever idea. Hans tells him that he can only cover him for 60 seconds, which is a bit too precise as if he is John Wick. Adlet tells him to run straight towards her when the 60 seconds are up and not to think of anything else. Their plan starts and Adlet begins to think of ideas he can use to deal with multiple fiends at once. Hans fights with the fiends alone and just when 60 seconds pass he starts to run towards Chamat. Adlet uses his whistle which distracts the fiends and then throws fire at them. Meanwhile, Hans gets close to Chamat but she uses her powers and a swamp comes out of her mouth which turns into a fiend. The fiend attacks Hans and sends him flying but Adlet runs straight at Hans and kicks him in the back like a true friend, sending him flying towards Chamat. Hans jumps on Chamat and seizes her. He hits her hard and she falls down, due to which her powers and the fiends disappear as well. The brutal homies both tie Chamat up and take her to the temple where they begin to interrogate her. Adlet asks Chamat whether she knew about the activation of the barrier before she came to the temple and she denies having any such knowledge. Flamey and Mora head back to the temple after hearing noises that sound like Chamat using her powers. Meanwhile, Adlet and Hans go back in the forest as well and Hans comments that Flamey is the most likely suspect for the 7th Brave. Adlet defends Flamey that he is certain she is not the enemy and Hans starts to rant uselessly about Flamey's darkness and compares it to his own darkness. Adlet replies that he still believes in Flamey. He starts to go into the forest and tells Hans to take care of Chamat. Before the homies' sad part, Adlet also tells Hans to think about what he said in the temple and that he is counting on him in case he finds any proof. Hans shouts at him one last time that Flamey really hates Adlet due to her darkness. Adlet finds a spot and throws the gunpowder at a tree trunk. Smoke starts to come out and across the forest. Flamey realizes that Adlet is calling for her. She approaches him slowly with a gun. Meanwhile, Mora reaches the temple alone and scolds Hans and Chamat. Hans explains to her that Adlet is not the 7th Brave and that Adlet may have in fact figured out the 7th Brave's plan as well. Adlet explains to Flamey that they were all told about the activation of the barrier by Lauren and that it is possible that Lauren may have lied to all of them since he could be working with the 7th Brave. He goes on to say that the 7th Brave must have waited for him to open the door and that he also somehow must have spread the fog everywhere, making everyone think that the barrier had been activated while in reality it was not activated yet. Adlet explains further that when they all came inside the temple the barrier wasn't activated and that when they all explored the temple and messed around, the 7th somehow activated the barrier then. Flamey replies that Hans was the one who blamed Adlet, so is he the 7th Brave. Meanwhile, with the princess and her dog Goldov, Nashatanya reminds Goldov of when they were all introducing themselves inside the temple and that when it was her own turn, Goldov scolded Hans and told him that Nashatanya was a princess. She then reveals to Goldov that Hans had teasingly called her princess once before they had even begun introducing themselves, making Hans the 7th fake Brave. Adlet explains to Flamey that he believes in Hans since Hans did not kill him during their fight. At this point, Adlet probably believes every nutcase in the world. Flamey tells Adlet that his explanation has one fatal mistake, and it is that the fog could only be spread by the Saint of the Fog Uspa in 15 minutes, but in reality, when Adlet opened the door the fog spread immediately in the forest. She then throws a gunpowder accessory on the ground and it explodes to reveal some stakes embedded in the ground. Flamey explains that such stakes are related to the barrier activation and that they are buried everywhere in the forest to activate the barrier. She adds that the fog was spread through them, so therefore the fog could only be spread when the barrier was activated and not by the 7th Brave. Hans also explains everything to Mora, who doesn't believe him, not surprising to anyone. She starts to head out to find Adlet, and Hans tells her that he believes Adlet is not the 7th brave. He defends him by saying that if Adlet was the enemy, he would have already killed Hans, Flamey, or Chema, and Mora argues with him that Adlet is tricking everybody to play with their hearts. She yells at Hans that Adlet has already managed to trick Hans and Nashatanya and that she will deal with him herself now. As if Flamey wasn't herself gloomy enough, she gives an even gloomier news to Adlet that his hypothesis was incorrect and that he has nowhere to escape now. She begins to use her powers, but Adlet smiles at her. She gets annoyed at this and asks him why he is smiling. He tells her that he has not given up yet. He also warns her that the 7th brave will come after her next and that as long as he is alive, no one will suspect her. Adlet asks her to believe him, and miraculously his simping works this time because she tells him he should stay with her longer and that maybe she can soon believe him. Nashatanya and Goldov wander the forest as well, and Nashatanya comments that she has always found Adlet to be a different guy from others. She asks Goldov to look at her crest to see whether he is alive. He looks at her crest, and when he confirms that nobody has died yet, she vows to work harder to find the truth. Flamey tells Adlet to stay because she might start believing in him, and this shocks him as he might be able to raise her up. He steps forward, but she points her gun at him and questions why he protected her so much. He tells her that he did it without any reason, but she doesn't believe him. He tells her that she is just like him and was betrayed by the people she trusted. He argues about how a person cannot fully get rid of his emotions, but Flamey thinks the opposite, so he tells her that he loves her without getting on the knees. He explains that his feelings changed the day he met her, and he wanted to protect her no matter who he had to go against. He says that he wanted to protect Flamey rather than finding the fake brave. She weighs her pros and cons and asks what he loves about, but he says that he has no idea. He thinks that his dialogues are cool and says that he also feels pain when Flamey gets hurt. She explains that neither the fiends nor the humans will accept her after the demon god is defeated. That is why she wishes to die with the demon god. Adlet tells her that she can start a new life after taking her revenge, and she explains that the humans won't accept a half-fiend and the brave killer. He throws down his most cringe line about being the strongest and declares that he will handle it. He declares that he will create a home for her where she is accepted and can start a new life, but inside. Adlet gets very nervous after recalling Hans's words about how Flamey doesn't believe in anyone. The confession backfires because Adlet didn't get on one knee nor did he get any flowers, so Flamey shoots at him. She declares that he is her enemy now and continues to shoot at him. The rest of the braves hear the gunshots and Hans realizes that Adlet failed. Mora orders Chamat to keep an eye on Hans and only to attack him if he tries something, otherwise she will get even angrier. Han assumes that Mora is so strong that even Chamat is scared of her, and Chamat says that she is stronger than Mora, but Mora is very scary. Mora uses her abilities of the Mountain Echo to tell everyone that Hans is in critical condition after getting defeated by Adlet, and that Adlet is the imposter. She orders everyone to kill him without any hesitation, and Hans tries to stop her. She says that the useless princess will finally do something now, and Flamey will try her best to kill him too. Chamat steps in the middle and says that he just tried to do something and now she can beat him half to death. One word from the scary hag and the pipsqueak backs off while Hans suspects that Mora might be the fake brave. Flamey continues to hunt him down while he tries to talk it out. Meanwhile, the princess rethinks her life decisions and goes crazy thinking that Adlet betrayed them. Her crackhead tendencies start to appear as she goes on a tree-cutting spree while wondering how it would feel to cut her enemies down. Flamey fires a signal in the air which reveals their location to everyone else. He tries to smoothen things up with Flamey, but she calls him a fake and tries to shoot him again. He tries to run away, but she practices her grenade throwing skills at him. He throws spikes in the smoke which hits Flamey, and he comes back to check up on her. She asks him why he didn't run away, and he says that he wants her to believe in him. He tries his best to riz her up, but realizes that Flamey has already decided that won't trust anyone again. He runs straight towards her while screaming her name only to get blown away by her grenades. Mora joins the fight, and this is the first time he witnessed a pretty girls chasing after him. He tries to burn Mora using oil and the flint in his mouth, but she is unscathed, so he throws a smoke bomb. Flamey assumes that he must have gotten away, but he appears in front of her without retaliating. Mora tries to finish him, but Flamey stops her and says that he has already surrendered. Mora orders him to reveal all his plans and his backers, but instead he says that he will prove Flamey's innocence. He takes out a spray developed by his master and says that it reacts to anything that a fiend touches. He asks Flamey to hand over a bullet, and he sprays it on the bullet, which reveals Flamey's prints. He reveals that he used the spray on the altar which is used to activate the barrier, and no traces were found on it, and Hans also knows about it. This proves that she did not activate the barrier. And he says to Mora that if she is the fake, then her plans are ruined. He says that the fake is planning to kill Flamey after him, but this proof ruined that plan. Mora says that Adlet is very scary because he sounds so believable, and that is why she must kill him before everyone believes him. She prepares to finish him off, and he tells Flamey to go to Hans after he dies because he can be trusted. Mora swings at him but gets blocked by Flamey's bullet. Flamey tells Atlet that she hated him because she was starting to believe in him even though she did not want to believe in anyone. She starts crying and says that she believes in him even though she swore never to believe in anyone again. Mora tries to finish Atlet off but Flamey throws a smoke bomb so he can escape. He grabs her and tells her that she will escape with him. They evade Mora's attacks and wonder where they can escape to, but Nashatanya's blades appear out of nowhere to stop them. Mora catches up to them and the princess and her doggy also pop out from the bushes. She declares that it was fun but she will kill Atlet now. She thanks him for letting her gain so many new experiences for the first time but says that he will have to die now. Flamey explains to her that Hans is safe and that Mora is lying, but Mora says the opposite. Nashatanya says that she is waiting for Atlet to repent before she kills him, and Mora tells her that not everyone repents before their death. Nashatanya doesn't wait anymore and sends her blades towards them, but due to them being so densely packed, a single bullet causes them all to crash into each other. Atlet and Flamey continue evading her attacks while Flamey throws as many grenades as she can. Goldov attacks her but Atlet helps her dodge it and she protects him from the crazy princess's attack. She fends off the three by using bombs to protect the so-called world's strongest person. Flamey tells him that she will hold off Mora and Goldov and he should escape to the temple. He realizes that he was supposed to be the one protecting her and tells her that he will protect her at the end. He picks the most unnatural time to say that he is the strongest man before running away. Flamey pushes back Goldov but gets punched away by Mora and gets knocked down after protecting the strongest for so long. Atlet arrives at the temple so he can show Nashatanya that Hans is safe and that Mora is lying, but he can't find Hans at the temple. He checks his crest and sees that no one has died yet. The crazy princess catches up and attacks him, so he deploys a smoke bomb and escapes into the forest. She follows him and injures him a little bit, but he continues to run away from her. He dodges her homing blades a few times, but one cuts him. He falls down and she finally catches him. He talks about how he thought they will fight the demon god together, and she says that he was the one who betrayed them. He starts shivering and says that he didn't betray anyone. She grabs her blade to kill him while he thinks about how cold it is. He realizes something at the last moment and uses his hands to block her blade. He throws her to the side and breaks the blade before landing a well-deserved kick on her face. Goldov arrives and Atlet runs away, but he doesn't get far due to his injuries. He drops all his stuff to lighten the weight, but Goldov catches up and hits him away. Atlet hits the corpse of a fiend and Mora also arrives with Flamey. He thanks Goldov for hitting him to this place and reminds him that this is where they fought with the fiends before going to the temple. Nashatanya and Mora tell Goldov to kill him, but he says that they should get information from him before that. Nashatanya gets stunned when she sees Hans and Chamok coming towards them, and she realizes that Atlet was not lying. Mora accepts that she lied but says that Atlet is still the fake, and Nashatanya argues that she tricked them. The half-dead Atlet doesn't miss the chance to flex and explains that he is the world's strongest man because he has power, skill, wisdom, heart, and luck. He questions who else but him could have made it so far despite them being against him, and announces that it is time to defeat the fake. He explains that the barrier activation method they were given was fake and that the actual barrier was activated after they entered the temple. Mora objects that even the Saint of Fog would need a powerful barrier to create so much fog, but Atlet indirectly calls them illiterate by explaining how fog is created. He explains that fog appears when the temperature falls too quickly, but Mora says that no saint has the power to make the temperature drop so suddenly. He tells them that they don't need to drop the temperature but can make it rise instead, and they realize that the only one who can do that is the Saint of the Sun, Ryura, who has been missing for a month. He adds that the fake or his allies kidnapped Ryura and forced her to work, probably by taking her family hostage. They made her raise the temperature of this area gradually over the period of a month. That's why this area was hotter when they came here. He guesses that the people in the fortress were either not the real soldiers or they were helping the fake brave from the start. They gave the braves the false activation method, and the fake brave led them to the temple using the fiend. They waited for Atlet to open the door, and the monkey fiend gave the signal for Ryura to be killed. Her powers suddenly vanished after her death, and the temperature dropped suddenly, which caused the fog to appear. After this, the fake used a commotion to approach the altar and activated the real barrier without anyone realizing. He explains that the final proof would be Ryura's body, which should be close enough to hear the monkey fiend's cry, and that the best place would be to hide it in a mountain of corpses. Hans shouts from the side that he has found it, and he says that the big fiend corpse was not of one that they killed, so it means that it appeared after the fight. Hans cuts open the fiend's stomach and drags out Ryura's corpse from the inside. He questions if anyone still suspects that Atlet is the fake, and Mora claims that this is all Atlet's trap. Flamey shuts her up by pointing out that if this was his trap, then he would have revealed it earlier instead of almost dying so many times at their hands. Mora asks who the brave might be if it is not Atlet, and they all look at her because her actions were the worst up till now. It's very funny how the tables have turned, but Mora doesn't agree with them and asks if they have any proof. Atlet wonders who it could be if it's not her. Just then Chamat says that it is not Mora and brings out 2 stone tablets. He reveals that he broke through the temple's floor and found a big box that contained the 2 tablets and a sword. Hans explains that 1 tablet and the sword are the ones that were present in the temple. Turns out, Hans was the one who suggested checking under the floor, and Chamat and he argue about who deserves more credit, like 5-year-olds craving for attention. Hans explains that the 2nd tablet contains instructions on how to deactivate the barrier and how to reactivate it. He says that this activation method requires the sword to be pulled out and the 1st tablet is to be shattered after it. They question who broke the tablet and Adlet recalls who it was. Flamey says that it was Nashatanya and Goldov comes in front to protect her. She says that she did break it but she did not mean to activate the barrier. She asks Adlet to take her side but he is deep in thought. He realizes that for the trap to work, the first brave to reach the temple must be fooled. He recalls that it was also Nashatanya who asked him to head to the temple and he finally understands that it really is her. He shouts her name and she realizes that he cannot be fooled anymore. She accepts that she is the fake 7th brave and the shock makes Goldov fall to his knees. She says that she knew about the extra set of material but didn't know that there would be a 2nd tablet that contained the real activation method and that she regrets not investigating enough about it. She reveals that she thought she would be able to kill at least 2 of them and could have killed Adlet, which shows how delusional she is to think that she can kill the strongest Giga Chad, but says that things were going in her favor, that is why she didn't do anything. She calls Adlet an easy target that can be easily fooled and says that she didn't expect him to figure the whole plan out. She points out that she would have succeeded if Hans wasn't here, and Mora asks her if she really wanted to side with the demon god to destroy the world. The delusional princess yaps about world peace and how she wants the humans and fiends to live together. She still had the audacity and requests them all to back off so she can fulfill her goal. The dumb Mora asks her to explain in a way she can understand, but this shows that even the gods can choose dumb people to represent them. Nashatanya answers that she will make the fiends change their ways so they can coexist with humans, but there will be an extremely small number of victims. She proudly reveals that about 500,000 people will die, and this is just an extremely small number for the psychopath. Adlet has heard enough of her yapping and orders everyone except Goldov to kill her. No one hesitates and they attack her, but her body turns into mud. Adlet recognizes it as a high-level fiend technique and the rest rush off to find her. He falls down and Flamey starts worrying for him while looking for the medicine. She says that she wants to live when she is with him and starts to blush for the first time. He faints due to the loss of blood as Flamey is about to give him medicine, but unfortunately, he missed the best part. Mora is sitting next to him when he regains consciousness and she apologizes to him for not being able to figure out who the 7th brave was. Hans is sitting atop the altar and reveals to him that Nashatanya deactivated the barrier and escaped. He comes out and sees Goldov still sulking like an abandoned puppy due to the betrayal of his master. He visits Flamey, who is in the jungle, and she says that she doesn't know how to talk to him. He tells her to answer 2 things and asks if she will be fighting alongside them, to which she agrees. Secondly, he asks her if she really feels like wanting to live when she is with him, and she nods to it. Adlet gains the highest level of motivation possible and he says that they will survive after defeating the demon god. They all gather in front of the temple and a girl comes running towards them. Adlet recognizes her as his childhood friend Rolonia and she becomes happy after seeing him. The jealous Flamey asks who the girl is and she introduces herself as Rolonia Manchetta, the Saint of Blood. Mora asks her why she came here and she answers that she was blocked by the fog and reveals that she came to fulfill her duty as one of the 6 braves. They all get shocked when she displays her crest, which is nicely located in the same place as the fake one Nashatanya had. The king of Gwenbyre and his royal guards arrive at the temple after hearing about the barrier's activation. He informs them that all the fiends scattered across the continent are coming towards the forest that they are currently in and that they will arrive in a few hours. The estimated number of fiends is 2,000 and the braves discuss if they should retreat or not. They start to argue about who the 2nd fake brave is, but Adlet steps forward to talk to the king. He gives his usual introduction and tells the king to do what he says. He asks them if they can activate the barrier again, and the king reveals that they have brought enough provisions to stay in the barrier for some time. He tells the king to activate the barrier in 30 minutes and to protect it till they defeat the demon god, and the king agrees. He turns to the braves and says that he is the most trusted out of them all right now and asks if they are okay with following him. They agree and he leads them to the entrance of the land of the howling demons. He talks about how their escape route has been cut off so they can only return after defeating the demon god and reminds them that one of them is fake. With that, they finally head towards the decisive battle. Will they be successful in their mission or will the fake brave destroy them from the inside? Comment your thoughts below and make sure to subscribe to the channel.